Hello, in session 2 we're going to talk about research question. We'll see the definition, importance, and the 5 major steps to writing a good research question, with a special emphasis on 2 of the steps. So research question or problem is simply defined as a specific inquiry that a given research seeks to answer through proper design, conduct, and interpretation of its findings. As you remember from the definition of research in session 1, we said that every research starts with a research question or problem. So this is going to serve as a starting point of our entire research, so it's very important to get it right. So research question is important because it gives purpose and clarity to our research. It helps us focus our research from a broad topic of interest into a specific researchable question that can be answered within the available resource. The other is it serves as a guiding framework for the entire research. So by serving as a framework, we can do literature review and learn about the problem, and we can also design our entire research based on it. So by doing so, it sets boundaries on our study and it sets the pace of our study. By these 2 things, we'll be able to focus our research study and achieve our target within the available resource and as scheduled. So there are 5 major steps into writing a good research question. The first one is obviously we have to start with a research question or topic that we have in mind. There are different sources of research question. The first one is our professional observation. In any profession, we can make observations based on the things that we encounter on a daily basis. If there's some skewed observation, some new pattern to our routine activities, our routine professional service, we can take that as a starting point for undertaking a research. For example, as a clinician, someone might encounter a patient or a group of patients who presented in a different manner for some disease condition other than expected, and they might respond in a different manner to a standard treatment. So this can be used as a starting point for research. We can ask by saying that, why do these patients present in a different way? Why do these patients respond in a different manner to this standard treatment? So by taking that as a starting point, we can conduct research. The other is, if we don't have anything in mind at the spot, we can go and refer to the national and institutional research priority areas. Every country has their own research priority areas in any field based on the epidemiologic and demographic data of the country. So for us, you can go to the Ministry of Health website and you can see what research priority areas are set in the country for the coming 5 years or 1 year or 10 years or whatever. The same works for institutions. Institutions, based on their location, also set their own research priority area. So if our research area is not in line with the priority areas of the country, we may not be able to get it done. So we can take that as a starting point. We can use these thematic areas as a starting point to generate a research question. The third one is we can get a research question by observing gaps in the current literature. Well, as a professional, if you're curious about new findings, new inventions, you can read articles. You can read journals. So by reading the journals, you can learn that you can learn about what is done so far and what's not done yet. So in a specific literature, you can refer to the recommendation section of a specific publication. On the recommendation section, always researchers are expected to write what gap they have observed while conducting their own research, and how that gap can be filled by other researchers. So you can use that as a starting point to design your own research. So after settling your research question by using one of these 3 methods, you have to conduct a preliminary research. That means you have to do a thorough literature review. By doing a literature review, you can get different benefits. The first one is you'll have a better understanding of the problem. You'll learn how other people have designed their research question and how they have handled it. And the other is, if the research question that you are seeking, that you want to study, is already conducted within the same study area, then you should not conduct the same study so that you do not waste resource. So you learn about that. The other is you learn if your research question is feasible to be conducted within the study area, given many factors like resource. And the other is you can learn about the methodological approach that as the researchers have used to address the same research question. So you will learn that if the methodological approach that you choose for your study is proper or not. And the other is literature review is not just a one-time process. It's something that you should do again and again until you get your research approved and you start data collection. So we always start our research after picking our research question. We say we have to conduct literature review. But that literature review should not stop there. Rather, we should do literature review again and again, because every day around the world in every profession hundreds of new articles are published in journals. So it's very important to do a thorough literature review throughout the process of writing your proposal until you start data collection, so that you can get the research question right and relevant. So due to this reason, a research question is said to be dynamic, because it's something that you are expected to improve or change throughout to improve or change after doing a thorough literature review, so that it can stay relevant and can be used for guiding practice or policy. The third one is it's very important to get expert opinion. By doing literature review and others, you can learn mostly about the methodological aspect of the problem, but getting expert opinion in the field of study is very important, because having their clinical or professional opinion on the research will keep the balance of the entire research by having both professional opinion and the methodological aspects. The third is by doing by conducting step 2 again and again, and by refining your research. You have to be able to narrow it down into a researchable question, which is now ready to be implemented. So in step 4, we have to be able to construct a well-designed or good research question, and finally we have to choose the type of research question that we are going to study. So we're going to see step 4 and 5 in detail. Let's see step 4. What are the characteristics of a good research question? The first one is we want our research question to be relevant. What makes it relevant? The first one is it has to be novel. It has to be something that is not yet conducted, it's not yet answered. Unless it's a novel problem, we're not supposed to conduct a research question for something that's already answered. The other is we want it to be a priority problem of the area. Even if the problem is novel, but if it's not a priority problem of the country or the study area that we are planning to conduct the research, no one is going to fund the study. And even if we get the fund, it will not be used for changing a lot in the study area. So we always have to make sure that the research question that we have is a priority problem of the country, or at least the specific study area that we are interested in conducting the research. Let's see an example. So does prophylactic heparin administration following ICH in adults reduce the incidence of DVT during the first year of follow-up compared to no prophylaxis? Well, stroke is one of the leading causes of morbidity and mortality in the country, and especially ICH is associated with higher mortality and morbidity, with the need of long-term follow-up for most of the patients. So yes, it's a priority problem of the country, and if we conduct if there is no prior research conducted in the area, then by studying this problem we can contribute a lot to the current practice. So if there's little evidence in the area, we can say that's novel, so yes, it's relevant, we are good to go. The other important characteristics is it has to be simple yet complex. So by simple we mean we want our research question to focus on one thing at a time. We don't want it to try to answer so many questions at a time. For example, for this research question, does prophylactic heparin administration following ICH in adults reduce the incidence of DVT during the first year of follow-up compared to no prophylaxis? And what is the optimal timing of treatment initiation for better outcome? Well, this is not a simple question. We can break it down into two different questions that can be answered on their own. Well, this can be just one research question, and this can be another research question, so that it can stay simple and focused. So we want our research question to be complex. So complex means doesn't mean that We don't want it to be simple. Rather, we're saying that it has to be something that should not be answered with a simple yes or no or with a simple data summarization. Rather, we want it to be something that needs an in-depth analysis and higher level of analysis to be answered, higher level of analytic statistical methods to be answered. For example, is deep venous thrombosis a risk following ICH among adults? Yes, this is something that we already know. So this is not a complex question. It's something that we can answer with a simple yes or no. If somebody asks how many patients develop DVT following ICH, well, this is something that we can easily answer by counting the number of patients with DVT and dividing them with the total number of ICH patients, so that we can get the proportion of patients who develop DVT. So again, this is something that can be easily calculated from our electronic database or even from the manual HMIS report system. So again, this is not something that we can call research and design a proposal and allocate resource and conduct. Something that we can get an answer to right away. Well, our research question, the one that we have been covering so far, is complex question, complex enough that can be answered through data collection and in-depth analysis by applying different statistical methods. So we have to make sure that our question is complex enough, but that doesn't mean we want our research question to be complicated. We want it to be answerable, yet it has to be answerable with some analytical effort, not just with simple statistical summary measures or simply yes or no. The other is we want our research question to be realistic. So realistic means we want our variables to be measurable. We want the research question to be something answerable. We're not supposed to deal with a research question that we cannot give an answer to. We have to be able to make sure that our research question is answerable, and it should be resource oriented. We have to consider if we have adequate number of participants in the selected research topic, if we have the technical expertise, if we have the time and the money and everything. We have to make sure that, and most importantly, we have to make sure that it's ethically sound. So for our research question, is it realistic? Well, the outcome of the study, which is DVT and all other exposure variables, including heparin administration and other variables, can be measured using standard scientific methods. And if it is properly designed, we can get detailed answer for our research question. And we have to make sure that our research is designed by considering all available resources and ethical issues. So if we can make sure that these things happen, yes, our study is realistic and we can conduct our study. So the other is we have to make sure that our research question is clear and concise. So to get it clear, we have to make sure that it fulfills the following. The first one is, does our research question tell us the population that we are going to study? Does it tell us about the intervention or exposure that we are interested in studying? Does it have a comparison group, the group that is not going to get the exposure or the group that is not going to get the intervention? And we have to make sure that the outcome of the research, the problem that we want to measure, is also stated, and we have to make sure that our research question has stated the time frame of the research. So we call this principle the PICOT framework. And the PICOT framework is a very important framework that we should use even when we do literature search, even for systematic review, meta-analysis, and umbrella review. So let's say our example. So in this example, we know the population we're interested in studying. These are adults with ICH. And the intervention or the exposure that we want to give is the prophylactic heparin. We can get that. And the comparator groups are the groups who are not taking the prophylactic heparin. We said that compared to no prophylaxis. So it could also be giving a placebo treatment, or it could also be giving another gold standard treatment. So our outcome or the problem that we want to measure is the incidence of DVT, and the time frame is within the first year of follow-up. So it's important to get to be able to include all of these things in our research question, so that it can be researched very well and it can be answered very well. So this is how we can keep our research question clear. The other thing is we have to make sure that our research question stays concise. That means even if we want it to reflect all the important parameters to make it clear, we have to still make sure that it's concise enough so that it doesn't lead to confusion. For example, if we state our research question by saying that since the risk of DVT is high among adults with ICH, that's prophylactic heparin administration, blah blah. So this phrase is like a bit much. We are expected to talk about this, that the importance of the problem in our introduction section of the research, not in the research question. So it's important to keep it concise by avoiding unnecessary explanation on the research question. So always make sure that your research is relevant, simple, but still complex, and realistic and clear and concise, so that you can have a good research question. So step 5 is classifying the type of your research question into the proper type of research question from the available questions. So there are 3 types of research questions. The first one is descriptive, the other is comparative and causal. These 2 types of research questions are together called analytic types of research questions. So let's see them one by one. A descriptive type of research question is simply interested in just describing the problem. So it answers the question: how many cases are there, when is it happening, where does the problem occur, and what or who is affected. So by answering these questions, it just describes the problem. So basically it can answer the magnitude of the problem, that means either the incidence or the prevalence of the problem, and its distribution in terms of time, place, and person. So to answer our such type of descriptive research question, what we need to use is descriptive statistical methods. These are methods that can summarize our data and describe the problem in terms of its magnitude and its distribution. So there is no p-value in descriptive statistical measures. So if our research question is purely descriptive, then there is no role of p-value in our analysis. Rather, we're going to get a pure descriptive statistical measures like prevalence, incidence, proportion, mean, median, mode, and other descriptive measures for which there is no p-value. So don't confuse that. When you get a p-value, it means you are conducting more analytic analysis, not just a descriptive statistical analysis. So if we have a research question that says what's the incidence of DVT among adults with ICH and its distribution in terms of sex, place of residence, and duration of illness, when this is a descriptive question, so it's basically interested in measuring the magnitude of the problem, which is incidence of DVT, and the distribution of the problem by person and time, and by person, time, and place, by saying that it's interested in measuring the distribution of DVT in terms of sex, place of residence, and the duration of illness. So, well, magnitude and distribution is the only interest of this question, so this is purely a descriptive research question. Comparative research question is mainly interested in comparing the magnitude of the problem between different groups, so to see if they are similar or different, if there's a positive and negative pattern between groups. So we can by doing so, we can partly answer why and how of a research question. Can answer why and how of a problem. So in this case, to answer comparative research questions, we apply analytic or inferential statistical methods. These methods are methods which can provide us p-values, so you should expect p-values whenever you have comparative research question in your analysis. You should expect p-values. So the typical tests that we use to answer comparative research questions are chi-square test, t-test, ANOVA, Pearson correlation, and the non-parametric correlates of all these 4 tests. So by using these tests, we can answer comparative research questions. For example, does the incidence of DVT among adults with ICH differ based on sex, place of residence, duration of illness, or prophylactic treatment options? Well, this is a comparative research question which is interested in identifying difference in DVT incidence between these groups. So that means we're going to compare the incidence of DVT based on between males and females, urban and rural residents, short versus long disease duration, and whether between groups who take the prophylaxis and who do not take the prophylaxis. So if you are interested in identifying the presence of difference in DVT incidence based on sex, that means we're comparing males and females in terms of their DVT incidence, and the same for all other variables, place of residence, duration of illness, and prophylactic treatment options. So this is comparative research question. The final type of research question is causal question. Causal research question is interested in determining whether one or more factors or variables affect or lead to the cause or occurrence of a problem under study. So we're interested in looking for a relationship if X affects Y. So by doing that, we can answer the why and how of a problem. So unlike the comparative analysis, here we can be more confident in answering why and how of a given problem. But in comparative research question, we can partly answer the how and why of a given problem. So to answer causal research questions, after we collect data, we have to run analytic or inferential statistical methods for which we should expect p-value. For example, we can run different sorts of regression analysis like linear regression, Poisson regression, binary, log binomial, multinomial, ordinal, all other types of regression models that we should pick based on logical and scientific basis. So for example, for our research question, this is a question that wants to see if prophylactic heparin decreases the incidence of DVT among patients with IC. So that means we are interested in seeing the effect of heparin in patients with DVT. So does heparin administration decrease the incidence of DVT? So we're looking for association. We're looking if heparin administration prevents the development of DVT. So this is a causal question. We're interested in looking for a cause and effect. So to answer this question, we have to be able to use a regression statistical methods to analyze the relationship and answer the question. So this is a causal type of research question. There's some very important lesson that I want you to take. A descriptive question, unless the problem is very novel, and that means we have very limited knowledge so far about the problem, having a descriptive research question alone is not recommended unless it's combined with one of these two research questions. Because as we said, for a descriptive question, that means a question for which we want to measure the magnitude of a problem or we want to see the distribution of a problem, we can get that kind of answer with a simple database search and a simple running of frequency or percentage or proportion. So for conducting a research, we have to have a very good reason. That means if we're seeking for comparative analysis or looking for causal analysis, we have to have a reasonable number of study participants to be included in our study. We have to use proper statistical methods, so it becomes a very researchable question, and that way we can do our research. Otherwise, for a simple descriptive research for which we have adequate knowledge, we are not supposed to design research, and we should refrain from doing that. So far when we talk about our research question, we've been seeing a lot of words like there's a problem that we're studying, which we have been calling it the outcome, and there are different factors or exposure that can affect the occurrence or non-occurrence of the problem that we're studying. So to arrive at a conclusion, we have to collect data on this problem and the factors that we believe could affect our problem. So in other words, we have to measure or quantify our problem and the factors that could possibly affect our problem. So these measurable components of our research question, that's the problem and the factors, are referred to as variables. So what's a variable? We will see variable in session 3. In the meantime, please attempt the quiz to assess your progress. Thank you for watching the video.